Hey guys, when we're talking about preparedness, let's talk about the pillars of preparedness, which is a very easy way to understand how you could be better prepared in modern society. So, when we look at the pillars of preparedness, we have EDC, mobility, and safe house or safe home. But the overarching umbrella, meaning the rooftop that insulates all the pillars of preparedness, happens to be mindset. The foundation is your social network or your community. So let's first discuss mindset. All right, guys, when we're talking about mindset and preparedness, we have to define what that means. Mindset is a very broad topic that's often discussed, but not really tangibly understood. Like if I say mindset is everything, that's real cool because it is everything, but what does that mean? How do I apply that to my life, especially when talking about preparedness? So I look at mindset and preparedness as resilience, meaning your ability to bounce back from adversity, from trauma, from bad circumstances into good. So how do you develop a more tangible understanding of resilience? And how do you improve your quality of life, but also improve your quality of preparedness along the way? Remember, mindset and its improvements are not just narrowly defined. It's going to help benefit everything that I apply in life. So let's first talk about what it means to be more resilient. Often in survival seminars, I talk about this idea of getting punched in the face. This is a figurative way of thinking about it, but also maybe a literal way of thinking about it. If I had a block of instruction on being better prepared and mindset was a theme, and I punched you in the face, what could I tell you about yourself? Well, when you actually get punched in the face, let's talk about the tangible getting punched in the face. What do? What are your actions? Like, how do you react? How do you respond? Think of getting punched in the face as a disaster. I'm not just talking about like the gunfight in self-defense, the disaster preparedness in a natural disaster like a tornado. I'm talking about literally you get hit and then you have to react, you have to respond. What is your reaction and what is your response? The way that you get hit is a correlation to your reaction to stress. So in low grade versus high grade, low grade is passive stress that we deal with every single day. Your significant other is mad at you. Your boss is mad at you. You have bills to pay. All this residual stress that leads itself to manifesting itself into ulcers and problems sleeping, all these different things. Well, when you look at high grade, the only thing that changes is the intensity and typically the duration in time, i.e. this getting hit in the face. So if that happens and you get knocked down to your knees, are you quick to get back on your feet? Do you overreact and over-respond emotionally? And how does that work out for you in being successful in surviving, maybe even thriving? So when I look at resilience, I'm thinking about how you deal with it every single day and how you're preparing yourself to deal with it under high, intense, short duration time periods. So let's say you're in a vehicle accident and you're not prepared to deal with stress because you don't deal with low grade stress very easily. What happens? Well, you panic. You can't call 911 because you literally can't dial it. You're in this fight or flight or freeze mode and everything in your senses is losing control. You can't compose yourself. You can't even converse with the 911 operator to tell them your location, the disposition of the situation you're in. So we have to examine our everyday habits in our lives, and we have to determine how resilient we really are. I think ultimately a lot of people have a false sense of security about themselves. They might have a broader, and there's two ends of the spectrum, right? They might have a broader idea of who they are because they live their life through ego. They virtue signal to the world that they're a badass, they're a cool guy, in the clothes they wear, and the way they present themselves in pictures and video, in whatever that format might be. But how truly capable are they? On the opposite end of the spectrum, you have people who are very insecure, who don't propose to the world that they are secure because they stay insulated. They don't want to be confronted with anything, let alone a stressful circumstance that's going to put them in a life-threatening situation. So where do you need to be? You need to strike the balance somewhere in between. And how do we build resilience? Well, what I've found is you could build your own resilience by willing to expose yourself to things you're not comfortable with. Yes, it's that easy. So if you were to ask me, hey, Mike, what activity, name one activity that I could do to build my resilience? I would ask you the question, have you ever been camping? Have you ever been outdoors for an extended period of time, let's say overnight, which is a short period of time, maybe 12 hours? If the answer is no, that's what I would advocate for you to do first. Because when you're exposed to the elements, simply nature, it doesn't even have to be extreme. It doesn't have to be super cold, super hot. It can be moderate. Because what you're doing is you're exposing your physical body, which is physiologically, which means mentally and physically exposing yourself to something you've never been exposed to before. Remember, we are creatures of habit. We love to be complacent because complacency means comfortability. So we want to be comfortable. We want to be feeling good about our lives, and any deviation left or right makes us feel stress. And so let's say you go out and you go camping. And let's talk about females. Males fit in this category too. But as an example, let's say you're used to waking up and getting yourself ready for the day. That includes makeup, doing your hair, maintenance, getting on your clothes, trying on clothes to make sure it's the right clothing. Let's talk about the night time before you actually woke up to get ready for your day. Well, what'd you do? You brushed your teeth. You undid your makeup, you took a shower, you did all your hygiene and grooming, and then got ready for the night. So on two ends of it, you had these comfortable habits that you've implemented that you no longer could have access to. So what do? What I've seen from people, normal people living normal lives, is they become very uncomfortable their first time out and venturing outdoors. And it's very interesting to see because they're used to the creature comforts and they're like, whoa, I can't brush my teeth. No, you can't. Only for a day, you can't brush your teeth. Oh, what do you mean? I can't do my makeup? No, you can't do makeup. If you take it off, you're not going to put it back on, or vice versa. And what you're doing is taking yourself outside your comfort zone, which is building resilience. Because here's what happens. You're often forced to adapt. And what that means is you're going to have to figure out a path to reduce your stress, or you're going to live in a condition of stress the entire time you're out. I've actually seen both ends of this where I've seen people go out and they hate it. They hate everything about it because they get home, they take a shower, and they're like, I will never do that again. But in a more positive way, I've seen people look at that circumstance and go, you know what? I want to do that again. It was very interesting to me that I felt free because I didn't feel tied to these habits that I'm used to living. You know, whether it's Netflix, YouTube, whatever it may be, we create these habits of comfort. When taken out of it, forcing us to adapt builds this layer of resilience. That's one means. And let's call that the passive means of building resilience. There's another way of building resilience that I've found in my special operations career that allows you to become more resilient in a shorter period of time. And it typically has to do with physical stress. Let's say, and I use this for an example, not identifying it with one type of workout, but let's say you do a high intensity workout. Let's call it a workout of the day. And that high intensity workout at multiple junctures makes you want to quit. Where your physical body goes, I can't do this. Lactic acid is building up, and it's a natural physiological mechanism of survival, actually, to stop you. Hey, this feels weird. This feels uncomfortable. I don't want to continue to do this. Well, when you're forcing yourself mentally to work and navigate that obstacle, which is physically propelling your body forward, it's going to benefit you. Because often we hit these roads and we are filling these roads with obstacles in our own way. Sometimes self-induced obstacles. So let's say you're on a career path and you want to accomplish this objective, which is this ultimate career that you hold in high self-esteem. Let's say it's being a doctor. Well, what does that require? Long, long nights of studying and not a lot of sleep and a lot of discipline. Well, what happens when you're practiced in meeting those obstacles and then resiliently navigating them? Well, it just becomes a normal part of routine. In fact, it's really addictive in a way. When you start doing these workouts and you start navigating these obstacles and you figure out the method to the madness, you want more. You know, when they use this term adrenaline junkies, I used to hear that, and I used to be told as a special operations guy that I was an adrenaline junkie. It's actually not true at all. In fact, when you're conditioned, meaning you're trained in doing something like jumping out of an airplane, there likely isn't adrenaline. That's why most jumpers who skydive push the limits. They do wingsuit flying. They do base jumping. They do these crazy swoops where they navigate to the earth dangerously at high speeds. So when you're conditioned, you're trained, and then you're just working through processes, almost like mechanical processes. The more you do that, the more you're comfortable at that, the more optimized that you become. So I can't even think of many circumstances in war and gunfights where I was really in fear of my life. Now, I do have a handful of them because they were exceptional. They were exceptional because they involved RPGs and mortar rounds and overwhelming firepower. And they were scary. But for the most part, I was operating in a very specific condition of optimization because of my training and exposure to uncomfortable things. So that's what I want you to think about when thinking about being more resilient in preparedness. Let's back it up to the beginning. You're in a vehicle accident or you witness a vehicle accident. How are you going to respond? If you've trained, not even in vehicle accidents, but in everyday carry and trauma and all these things, like maybe even a workout of the day, then you understand how to respond to stress. You understand what it's like when your brain starts doing weird things that you now can perceive when before you could not perceive them because you are typically running into a fight or flight. Look, let me explain the fight or flight real quick. Fight or flight is activated by the cortisol and the increase in intensity of that cortisol to get you into a fight or flight state. This state is beneficial in primal survival, but not very beneficial in specific types of survival in the modern era. Like when you have to be cognitive or when you have to use fine motor skills to do specific things. So we need to strike the balance. We don't necessarily need to go into fight or flight. And when we have exposure, building ourselves through adversity because we understand what it looks like and feels like, then we're better prepared. Resiliency is the key component, the overarching component to building mindset in survival. You know, I often think about the Virginia Tech shooting in Blacksburg, Virginia. A lone shooter, a mass shooter, killed over 30 students. The majority of those students were killed by being shot in the head, which is an indication in a tragic circumstance that he went one by one. I often think about the individual students in those classrooms and how they were processing what was happening in this catastrophic disaster, this man-made disaster. And I wonder if they were thinking that what was taking place was real. I feel like a lot of us in the United States of America specifically, because of our opportunities and freedoms, are living in a false sense of security. I'm not trying to scare anybody because I don't want to do that. But I want you to understand that fear and paranoia have nothing to do with being better prepared. It's the complete opposite. Because if I'm better prepared, I'm conscious and I understand the world around me because of that consciousness. So I want to stay awake. I want to stay aware, and I want to be better prepared. Preparation starts with mindset. That is resiliency. Remember, this is the overarching element that insulates all the pillars of preparedness. I wanted to do this video today for you guys to make you better understand how Fieldcraft Survival thinks and how I think about how you should be better prepared for the future. Thanks, guys.